I have a Google Doc called Morgan's Ramblings. It's very long. And so what I'll do is I'll be like, here's where my head was at with this. And then I do voice typing inside the Google Doc, and then I'll just riff. The posts that are more personal, where people are like, oh, that like I fell out from his soul, is like that's literally started as a rambling. So it's been interesting. Like those have been the posts that really help people is when I do it that way. I think it's just because it's coming straight from me, and then AI just cleans it up to make it sound better than just my rambling.
Welcome to another episode of What's Working. Today, I interviewed Morgan Ingram. Morgan has 168,000 followers as of this recording on LinkedIn, and he's built an incredible business called AMP on the back of that following. We covered two main things today. One, how Morgan creates content for his personal brand on LinkedIn. And secondly, how he thinks B2B companies should be creating content themselves. Let's get into the show. So tell me, what's working in marketing today?
So something that I have found extremely fascinating that I'm surprised I haven't used before is to make my content feel like more me. I actually do voice recordings to myself of what happened throughout the week and then transfer that through AI to actually make it like clean from the voice recording. And then I'll use that to write personal stories. So I've actually found that people connect with those a lot more just on like what's going throughout the week or what's happening. I feel like sometimes we get caught up in like, here are my pillars and I have to say these things. And I actually find it's actually way more beneficial when I just say, hey, this is something I did this past week. And because I reflected on it, it allowed for people to know me a little bit more, which is, again, the ultimate connector in the marketing piece. There's more I could talk about, but that one's been really big for me lately.
How are you doing that? Are you using just like a Apple voice notes or
Yeah.
some other tool? Like what's
I
the
have a Google
process?
Doc called Morgan's Ramblings. It's very long. And so what I'll do is I'll be like, here's where my head was at with this. And then I do voice typing inside the Google Doc, and then I'll just riff. And our best ideas and our best concepts come from what instinctively we believe, but sometimes we don't actually write that out or take action on it because like it needs to be more perfect. So this allows you to be as raw as possible. So I'll literally just like voice type, and then it'll come up with a thing. Then I put it into Claude because it understands my voice based on how I built the projects, and then it'll come up with like, here's what the post idea could be, and then I from there edit it to make sure it sounds legit.
Is there a like a prompt or like a template for a prompt that you could walk through to take that raw input and turn it into something better?
Yep. And I'm gonna butcher it because I have it like as a short key. But
Yeah.
it says like, take this raw recorded voice note thought that I have, and I basically say identify that this is something that is not clean. I want you to take these thoughts and cohesively tell me what I was trying to say back to me, and then come up with a LinkedIn post. And the LinkedIn post is all based upon what I've already written because I have a lot of posts, so it knows what I'm looking for. But if you're not trying to do that, you also could do it for videos and hooks or whatever you're trying to do. But basically, that's the prompt that I tell it. I tell it it's raw. I tell it to identify what happened in this, whatever I said. And then now we can break that into creative ideas or whatever that is. Because most of your ideas and your marketing stuff is from that blimp of whatever you had during that rambling.
Are you finding that type of post is doing a lot better than anything else, or is it representing more of your content nowadays than
It
other?
actually is. So the posts that are more personal, where people are like, "Oh, that like I fell out from his soul," is like that's literally started as a rambling.
Yeah.
So it's been interesting. Like those have been the posts that really help people is when I do it that way. I think it's just because it's coming straight from me, and then AI just cleans it up to make it sound better than just my rambling.
What else? What else is working?
I am a huge fan of doing lives, and I'm actually looking to do more of those going into the next year. But I think what's happening right now with, especially with LinkedIn, I think a lot of people are getting fed up with the AI comments. Right? Every time AI, the opposite of how to go wrong. The AI comments, I think this surface level content, the pods and things of that nature, when you go live, it's hard to fake it. Like whatever question happens or whatever's happening in real time, you have to know what you're talking about. Otherwise, it's not going to go well for you. So I found that the lives have allowed me to build a deeper, engaged audience, and even more importantly, it's allowed me to figure out what's happening in the market so I can create better content from the questions I'm getting, but also build even deeper relationships with my audience that maybe before I didn't have. And so not only am I doing it right now, I'm looking to do it in a bigger way going into the next year. But that's been a great way to repurpose content, figure out what's going on in the market, and all that type of stuff.
Yeah, I've been saying this for a while. I've actually been in Greg Eisenberg's comments and maybe even DMs saying, Greg, I want to see you cook. I want to see.
He can cook.
Yeah, yeah. So, but he's kind of doing it now with the AI segment on YouTube where
Mm,
they're building apps real time. But I actually want even more like raw footage from him. Like what is he doing throughout the day? And how is he making business decisions for marketing or what they build or who they're hiring? And what it does, to your point, is it builds the relationship with him and I even more so through this like pseudo relationship that he has
yeah.
with his followers. So yeah, I like that one a lot. Would you do that on LinkedIn? Like, would you host it on LinkedIn or would it be on another platform? Do you think?
So I would say I think it really is dependent upon where your audience lives, right? I think that's the first thing you have to identify because you can go live on I think pretty much every platform at this point. But for me personally, it's going to be LinkedIn and YouTube. That's where my biggest focuses are right now. And I haven't done any spaces yet, like on X and things of that nature. I think there's value in that if your audience is there and you want to go do that. And I've considered testing it. But the ones that I'm personally leading, LinkedIn and YouTube is where I'm going to focus.
And then what's the nature of that content? Is it or like the topics that you might cover? Would you and how would you think about what to talk about on those lives?
Yeah, so the way you want, I've done this. I did it. Well, I guess it was 4 years ago. I did one 4 years ago. Brought it back within this year. Now we're looking to make it more consistent going in the next year. And I'll give you what my topics were, and then you all listening in can decipher what you want to do with that. So the way that I go about it is one, I need to show that I know what I'm talking about in real time without it being an illusion. So I would do like cold email teardowns. I would do LinkedIn profile reviews, and I would just be like, throw in your LinkedIn profile, and in real time, I'm gonna like break it down.
Hmm.
Even people would send me like, "Hey, you trying to break in this company? Put the company in the chat, and I'll tell you what to do." So like, there's no way that this like they're not
You're
staged. It's
recording.
just like
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
throw whatever you want. I'll pick whatever, and I will literally show you what to do. And so people were like, "Wait, what?" And so like that shows your expertise when you can just grab anything and be like, "This is what you should be doing," and that helped out a ton, and it still helps out a ton. So like, I guess to contextualize that tactically, you want to find ways where somebody could throw anything at you in the crowd and do that. So now our focus is more helping executives and founders create their content, primarily video on LinkedIn, but it can be any content. And so now what I'm doing is saying, okay, anybody who's on here, like put your profile in here. I'll invite your content. I'll tell you how you can improve like in real time just by looking at it. And so that's where I'm going to go with that. So basically, this is tactical teardowns of whatever you can do if possible. Number two is on the live shows, you bring up a guest on a certain topic, but have it be a part of a conversation. So it's like a podcast, but it's not because
Yep.
all you're doing is saying, I have this additional person. We're going to talk about this topic, and the audience will feed questions. And then now you're just having a really good banter across the board. And then the third thing on the lives, my favorite ones is the competitions. So what we would this one is like where you can get a lot of fun. So when I was really focused on sales training, what we would do is I would have 8 people sign up or whatever, and then they would present here's how I'm gonna break into this account, or here's this email, and then I'd have judges grade that as part of the live. So those are the 3 ways that I would adjust. Oh, and the last one is just straight Q&A, ask me anything. So for an hour, anybody comes in, ask me anything, and go from there. So if you basically rotate through those 4 are the key. And the last point I'll make is because some people are going to ask where to start. I would start with, hey, Q&A straight to you, because then you could just answer any question. And then I'd start with like the podcast style, like bring on someone live and then get comfortable. And then once you're comfortable with those 2, then you can start expanding to the other 2 I mentioned.
Yeah. So you don't necessarily have to align the show to something that you're selling or offering. Is that right? Like ideally, but it sounds like you're going.
I would say ideally that's where you want to aim. I would say you want to aim it towards people you can bring on that you eventually would sell to, and then you do want to aim it towards people that you would potentially sell to. But some of those topics could just be more broad, just to bring people in. But I would say ideally, yeah, you do want to focus on people you want to get in front of, or that could refer you to people you want to get in front of, and then guests you bring on are people that could refer you to someone or potential clients. It needs to be within the realm.
Okay. All right. So talk to me about maybe like the lead up and aftermath of this event. So like what goes on before, what goes on after a live event?
So before a live event, I use LinkedIn events to invite people. You can send out 1,000 invites per week to people. And also, as well, if you do it through your
Wow.
company page, you can capture those emails. So then they're added to your email list. And so that's just another tactic that we use. So I know if I promote an event 3 weeks out, that's 3,000 invites we can send. 10% conversion is 300. So just by sending out invites, you just got 300 emails and 300 people to accept. Like
Dang.
that's just like bare minimum.
Dang.
I'm just giving
Yeah.
easy numbers. So we do that pretty consistently. And then email news blast, we'll do that. We will promote it in the content. We'll like say, hey, the show's coming out. And then we also will have, if it makes sense, the guests will promote. And then another thing that we're not doing this yet, but I just partnered with a text company. It's called Texla, and we're now going to get people's numbers so we could like text them and say, "Hey, this is coming up." So it's easier. It's a higher opt-in for that.
Yeah.
So those are like the main ways we do it in terms of the lead up, and then after the show, we'll send asset clips to the guests if they want to promote or whatever that is. We also have people going to have QR codes where they can scan and get like an asset. So then, if they didn't for whatever reason they fill out an email and they just came randomly, we could do that as well. And then another thing that we're gonna start doing, depending on what segment we do, is like giveaways. So if someone asks a really good question,
Right.
someone came on and had a really good example,
Yeah.
cool, we'll do giveaways. And I would not recommend doing this every time, but like every so often, right? Cool, we'll do some giveaways and liven it up for people. So that's the typical process that we'll take. And one last thing I want to mention is during the event. So if you're running like I think you probably know Riverside too, but Riverside, Restream, StreamYard, whatever, anyone who joins your live, they also can stream live to their audience
Yeah, that's
as
right.
well. So that's just another arbitrage you can think about.
Yeah, I think that's brilliant. What else is on your mind going into the new year in terms of marketing initiatives?
I really, I really want to test more micro events
In person
in
or
person, in person, in person, and be very selective with that. But like, I don't want to do. I've been giving people feedback on this, and then I just need to do it myself at this
yeah.
point because I've been to like I don't know, you've probably been to good, but I've been like maybe 12 to 15 events this year, and I've grown to not like them as much because I think they're doing too much on the speaking side and not doing as much on actually connecting the people and like solving the actual problem of why they actually came to the event. So I want to do more micro events where there's like 100 people, 125 people, and we're solely focused on one main huge problem, but then there's segmentations of how to solve it. And I only want like 5 people to speak, but everything else is like I would call them round tables, but you can call them problem tables, where it's like, here are the problem, here are like the big, here's a huge big problem, and here are the different ways to solve them, and like there could be many problems in themselves, and then these tables are now spread out, and you have someone lead that table, and then you can really go in and solve your problems. Obviously, be geared towards like what I'm trying to solve myself and the
Yeah.
problems that we address, but the people there are probably trying to solve it, or they are having conjunction trying to help. So that's where my main focus is going to be is like, how can we have these micro events in person where people can do that? And then if that doesn't make sense, at least doing it virtually is like having these micro events is like, I'm really big about because I think more and more people will just start to not go to the big events because they feel like they're wasting their money or whatever that may be.
Yeah, and what you could do is what Gary V either still does or used to do, where he'll have these small in-person events, but then film the whole thing and turn it into content, or it's a live stream that people can join virtually. I think he called it 4Ds. I don't know if you remember that, but
Oh yeah, I do remember that. I do remember that. Yeah,
it's
yeah, yeah.
different than what you're saying. But the takeaway there is that he still turned it into digital content, and you can still tune in from your home. That's what I did at Shopify. We did 25-person event, round tables, breakout sessions. It was 60-40 pleasure versus work, or play versus work time. So it wasn't, business the entire time. Anything else on your mind? Anything else that's interesting you think that other marketers would want to maybe copy or experiment with?
I have another thing that I have. I'll tell you what I'm doing next year. I think everything I'm going to tell you here moving forward, or what I've even said, is I don't think anything's like earth shattering. Like I think because it's not like I'm going to do this crazy thing on the moon. Like I think it's just like what are the things that people already do, and how can we improve them and make them even better so it's optimized for us. So in B2B, especially right now, I've seen an uptick of it. I'm curious if you have as well. Is more people wanting to get into YouTube and understanding how it works
Mm-hmm.
because they understand like yeah we gotta get LinkedIn, but they're like YouTube SEO, like we want to be here. So for me, I'm finding ways to optimize YouTube to the next level, and that's actually my next focus. I would say for most people listening in, if you're in B2B, this is untapped per se because a lot of brands don't have a strong presence there. I've looked through every single SaaS brand, by the way, so I already know this. They typically don't have a strong presence. There's only a few brands that do it pretty well, and their highest viewed video is a product video, but that's just put through probably a backlink that they use to like
Yeah.
sit the prospects. So technically, probably not that strong. And so to get in that arena and understand YouTube is going to be massive. And what I'm doing to think about that is I'm actually going to here in Arizona. I'm trying to find like an intern that can like film me and do certain stuff so we can get better YouTube content. Every single conference and place I go to, I ask for the recording or I'm bringing someone to film me. Every single thing that I do that's outside of an event or I'm just somewhere, I'm having someone film it so we can put it on YouTube because
Mm-hmm.
people want to see the personality of what you're building and what's going on. Obviously, the just the brand itself is not going to be as strong moving forward. It'll be strong, but not as strong. But that personality is going to be what draws people in and keeps people there and keeps them interested. So I think investing in YouTube, doing more in person stuff. I'm finding ways to do more in person interviews if I can actually do it. I'm finding ways to maximize in person interviews, being at micro or events that I'm being asked to speak at, and getting as much in person content as possible, so I can optimize that for not only YouTube but also short from LinkedIn as well. So I feel like focusing on video is big, and that's just where my head's at.
So just quickly on the YouTube side of things. So you're looking at a lot of SaaS companies that are on YouTube, but they're not doing it well. What do you think are one or two lessons that they could implement today to be better?
I think they need to face. Are you familiar with the future, Chris
Yep.
Doe?
Yep.
Yeah. Okay. So it's called the future, but obviously the main person is Chris Doe. But there's some people that from time to time they'll pop in there and give different insights. And for most brands, there isn't a face that I can like go to or faces that's like, okay, when I think of this brand, I think of these people or this person. It's just product updates and like a video, informational
Yeah.
video. There's nothing to it. So I think one is you got to find out who can be our person that's going to be the face of this and like lead that charge. So I think that's number one. And then number two is how can we give more tactical content based on what our offering is? Now, I know for certain brands that might not be as applicable, but still at the end of the day, like there's still content that can be made and be had there. So I also would say put in that consideration as a big piece as well as how can we make this more tactical and not as much theory or hypotheticals? Like how can we show more how to's? Because that's what people are looking for on YouTube, like how to do something. So how can we do more of that? And then what not to do is what I see is don't take your you probably see this. Don't take your webinar and then repurpose it on YouTube and be like, oh, we're gonna get. Don't do that either because I see a lot of people just being like, here's our 58-minute long YouTube video that was from our webinar, but isn't optimized for YouTube. It's actually gonna hurt your search and hurt your optimization.
Yeah, I think there's a huge opportunity for big B2B SaaS companies to think way outside the box here and develop like a traditional YouTube show and then weave their company into it versus trying to jam their company and their brand onto YouTube. Like just think of something that would perform well on YouTube and then find a way for your company to be aligned with it.
I think the main thing I'll say this is as you go into the new year, we mentioned a lot of different things. Is two things to focus on. One is what is the big swing that you're going to make next year, and I haven't made the decision on that myself. To be fair, I'm still like, what is it actually going to be? Because I want to have like real confidence in it. And then the second thing is, what are we going to experiment that we may have been saying we wanted to, but we're going to try. And experiments can be small, but I think also from marketing perspective is like We're always looking at how to experiment to find something different, and that's what leads to that too, because it could be even bigger return than you thought. I say those are the two things for sure.
When are you going to decide on what your main initiative will be?
I'm making the decision before Thanksgiving, so the next 2 weeks. So I'm mulling over what I want. I haven't come to be like this is exactly what I want, but I got a couple things considering. But yeah, I'm mulling over a couple things.
Okay, that's a wrap for today. If you want more recordings like this and you want to dive deeper into each episode, go to whatisworking.co and make sure to subscribe. Thanks for watching.